Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Tuesday, October the 10th. Let's start in Washington again, as we often do. Donald Trump apparently is working on an executive order pertaining to health care. His idea is to provide an executive order permission to get around some of the mandates of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. This could allow people to form associations for small business, allow people to get into high-risk pools, allow people to get out of mandated coverage who are healthy and thus frankly end up causing chaos in the whole insurance market. There's not a lot of broad support for this, but he could make this happen by executive order. It would set off a lot of chain reactions, none of them good for universal health care, I have to say. Also on serious topic today, the New York Times has a fine story about the ways the Russian Facebook moles infiltrated the 2016 presidential campaign with news stories meant to influence the election outcome. It's a sobering indication of how propaganda can be used, although in some ways there's nothing new about it, and in some ways this is not fake news. The Russians repurposed and spruced up, in some cases, real news. They, for example, the New York Times pointed out, distributed it among people whose rage would be incensed by it. Photographs of young people of color, black and brown people who loved Hillary Clinton, demonstrated at rallies for her. This was true, it was real, but there were a lot of people that were motivated to vote for Donald Trump because they didn't like the idea of electing somebody who was popular with black and brown people. So it's an interesting story. On a less substantive note, the president continues on his reality TV ways. It's really remarkable to see what's going on in Washington. We had the unseemly spectacle of the president's first wife, Ivana Trump, getting into a little squabble with his current wife, Melania, over who exactly is the first lady. Not exactly highbrow entertainment, but sort of funny in its way. The president started to call names of Bob Corker, who's been a critic of his from the U.S. Senate. He's little Bob Corker, the president, making fun of somebody who's not as tall as he is. Little woe-betide, some fat guy like me make fun of him. I bet he's got a name for that too. And that's not all. He's challenged Rex Tillerson, his own Secretary of State, to an IQ test. Imagine that, the president of the world's largest, most influential country challenging his own Secretary of State to sit down and take the SAT test against each other. And it looks like Trump's going to have some success in forcing NFL owners to perhaps adopt a rule to have servitude on speech by their players and require them to stand and salute the flag during the national anthem at NFL games. Will they be required to put their hand over their heart in just such a way? Will they be required to dress in such a way? Will they be made to be silent after the national anthem, after games, before games? It's an authoritarian bent that the president seems to like, and NFL owners who are kind of a conservative light seem to like it too. Well, back in Arkansas, Jan Morgan, who's a shooting range owner near Hot Springs, says today that she'll announce on the Lou Dobbs show on appropriately Fox News that she's formed an exploratory committee to run for governor in the Republican primary against Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson too liberal for her, which will come as some surprise to the people who think she's a very conservative governor in any number of ways. Not tough enough on guns and gays and spending, says Jan Morgan. I think Bart Hester had it right. If she runs a really great campaign and raises a lot of money, she may get 20% of the vote. But who knows? These far-right challengers are in vogue these days, and one of them upset the supposed favorite in an Alabama Senate race. So who knows? Asa Hutchinson will take her seriously, I'm sure. We learned late yesterday, after we taped yesterday's program, that what happened when the Little Rock police ended in a fatal confrontation with a man outside a late hours club in Little Rock early Saturday morning was that he was shot multiple times by a police officer who'd gotten in a car with him while another police officer was outside trying to hang on. The guy wouldn't stop when they observed him drinking. Turns out he was a ride service driver coming to pick up a customer at this club. Nothing happened inside the club. He refused to submit to arrest and drove off with the officer in the car. She fired, fearing injury to herself. He crashed the car. I think that it's early to say for certain how this will turn out, but police have broad ability to use deadly force in such cases. Whether they handle the initial effort to take him into custody is, of course, another matter of procedure that's also worth looking at. The Supreme Court of the United States is going to be asked today to consider the Mississippi state law that allows people to refuse service to gay people. Mississippi has a law that's very explicit that says in work, in housing and in public services, you can discriminate against gay people if you have a religious objection to serving them. The interesting thing here is that Arkansas has a similar law, not quite so explicit, but the effect is the same. Religious protection for people who want to discriminate against gay people in any number of ways, and this also applies in the effort by the state to prohibit civil rights ordinances on the local level. We want to discriminate against gay people in Arkansas and give legal protection to those who do. Perhaps the U.S. Supreme Court in a Mississippi case will provide some guidance in the other direction. Comcast, the big internet and TV provider in Little Rock, announced that it's going to provide gigabit internet service to all residential and business customers in Little Rock. That's a broader service, they say, than some other internet providers provide, although some have some high-power internet here. Supposedly this is good for business. And here's some sad news, I have to say, kind of funny in a way. There's a big candy outfitter, candy.com, that's done 10 years worth of research into candy sales around Halloween time and identified the most popular Halloween candy in every state in the country. You know, does Arkansas get anything right? It doesn't seem like it. Our number one candy at Halloween is Jolly Ranchers. No, thank you. Move me to Iowa, where the number one candy is Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. I'm Max Brantley. I'm still resistant. If you're looking for a subject to resist, I think a good subject for today would be sexual harassment and authoritarianism. Both of them have a context in the presidency. Voters decided not to do anything about sexual harassment in case of the presidency, but it looks like women speaking out have brought down a giant in the movie industry, and so that's progress of a sort, I think. If we can resist authoritarianism too on the football field and elsewhere, I think we'll also be better off. I'll be back tomorrow.